The Survival Guide to Life.
Hey everyone, how's it going? We got another episode of the Survival Guide to Life, and this week we have guest speaker Erika Gardenal. Now, Erika, for everyone who's tuning in, if you could just really be briefly, just let us in on some of the major accomplishments you've gone through.
Thank you so much for having me in your podcast, Amar. So, some of my major accomplishments in my life, I think, well, the first one would be, I guess, to leave Italy and go and live in another country, which was the UK, without speaking the language, and then graduating there with the highest. Um, I got the highest mark out of the class, and then I started working in corporate, but in retail. Then, because the learning curve, it's not that steep. After a couple of years, I started losing interest, and then moved into ad tech. I moved to Shanghai, and I spent there a bit less than a year, and then I moved back to London, got another corporate job, and I started as an individual contributor there. And after the first year already, I started moving up. I got promoted to team lead, and after 2 years, I think it was, then I got or maybe even less, I got promoted to manager. So, and I have an amazing relationship with the people that I used to manage. So to me, that is one of the biggest achievement, to be a good leader, to be a good manager. But I left corporate last year because my dream is to help people through my coaching.
Okay, so that's a big list of major accomplishments. So just from what you said in the beginning, I was just curious, um, what what was going on in your mind, as well as how much courage did it take to leave Italy and go to London when you didn't know the language, and still be able to come out as the number one student.
Well, it didn't. So, just for you and everybody to know, I moved to London, and after a couple of years, 2, 3 years, I started going to uni. It didn't happen straight away because, of course, I needed the language. But to me, it was like I needed a big change. Italy felt too small. I was living in a tiny village, basically, and I needed to see the world. I had been to London just for a long weekend, and I fell in love with the city. So I thought, I'm sure it's a good place to start. So I had this thing within me, this fire that was igniting. I don't care what's gonna happen. I'm not gonna die. I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna learn the language, and I'll take it from there.
So, with that mindset, was there anyone in your family who wanted you to not do this, and still you told them, like, don't worry, I'm going to be able to do this, and even with that, you showed them that you were able to achieve it?
So the thing is, at the beginning, the plan was to be there for 6 months.
Okay.
So nobody had an idea that, that, and because that happened 15 years ago, 16 years ago, actually. Nobody knew that I would have never come back to Italy. So my parents, they thought, okay, 6 months experience, that's fine. She comes back, all good. My friend, same. But after, when I decided to stay, and it was clear that I was just going to stay and would not come back, everybody was shocked, and they were like, oh, we never thought you could actually do it, because you always lived under this, under, let's say, my parents' protection, because they were very strict. And I think also that played a part of, for me to actually leave the country, to see the world, and be free and do what I wanted. So everybody had this idea of that version of me being very quite reserved, maybe, wanted to feel safe within my comfort zone. So everybody was like kind of shocked, like, oh, wow, she's thriving. And we did not see this coming at all.
So yeah, they were actually expecting something else, and then did maybe even asked, "Is it really you who's saying this?"
Yes, exactly like this, because the values that I had back then, they were quite different from the values that I've developed, and probably they were always there deep down myself. And everybody was shocked because that was not the version of me that they knew. They didn't know me as somebody particularly courageous that would just, take a leap of faith and just go for it.
So when you took that leap of faith, was there anyone who sort of went against you or sort of didn't really believe in you, and it sort of took you that journey of going through everything and getting those jobs to finally believe in you?
So it happened when I decided to go to uni in London. And that was 2005 when I moved to London. I was 23. So I think I was 25 or 26 when I started going to uni. And my parents, especially my dad, he didn't want me to go to study in London. They were like, but you need to think about building a family. And I'm like, I don't have anybody. I'm not in a relationship. I want to build my life, and then we'll see what happens. And then there was a friend of mine, or at least someone that I was considering my friend, that said to me, oh, you're going to go to London to go to uni there, study there, and you're also planning to work while studying. It's never going to work. You're not going to make it. The city is expensive. You're studying a language that, is not your native language. Um, Working, it will take time away from the study. It's never going to happen. But there was something inside me that I kind of knew that that's what I was meant to do. And in a way or another, I would have come out the other side successful. I know sometimes we doubt ourselves. I think we don't listen enough to what we have inside and to the drive that we have inside, and we listen more to the fears. Of course, there were times where, I was like, okay, I'm doing this. So I'm going to study in London, working part time, paying rent, everything else, and trying to make it through the 3 years studying a language that is not mine. And to be honest, the study part wasn't the hardest part for me. It was what was worrying me was more the economical side of things, because I was like, I need to make this thing work by working part-time in a way or another, but just had this trust in me that it is going to happen somehow. I know I'm going to make it work. And sometimes that's what we need, is just this deep trust in ourselves, and that things are going to happen.
So with that, it sort of goes into you trusting yourself, and I think that's some of the biggest problems we face as humans, is sometimes not trusting ourselves enough, or believing what everyone else has to say. So when your quote your friend said this, I'm sure there were a mix of emotions going in through your mind, but were there any of the emotions like, oh, okay, you don't think that I can do this? Just watch me do this and I'll prove it to you.
Yeah, deep. So when she said that, I didn't say anything. I let it go. But deep inside me, I was like, you watch me. I'll make this happen.
And then fast forward, I guess, into now, um, when after you finishing university and everything, did they say anything like, "Oh, Erica, I didn't think you were able to do it. Congratulations."
Actually, I've lost touch with this friend of mine. People usually, when they tell you things like that, it's because they're projecting their own fears on you. So I made peace with the fact that, that's what she was thinking for herself. That if she had done it, she wouldn't have, been able to succeed, which I'm sure, to be honest, that she would have been able to do it. But people, when they tell you it's not going to happen, it's because it's just their own fear. And they know that that's what they think, that if they did it, it wouldn't happen. So it's important that we bear this in mind, that when sometimes it's not about us, it's about them.
That makes sense. No, um, you said helping people was your dream. What about helping people sort of, uh, inspires you to keep moving and keep going along every day?
So yes, to me, helping people is something I always wanted to do. That, I had this thing since, well, that was very clear the past 7 years, maybe even more, but I never really knew how to do it, because I always had this hunch even before, but never really knew, couldn't figure out. Probably I didn't know myself well enough. And then, life happens, and then you learn a lot more things. So to me, I had to work out 2 years ago. I was like, no, now I need to be very clear, because I was 37. I was like, I need to be very clear with what is it that I want to do in my life, because I know deep down, I don't want to do this job for the rest of my life. I want something more meaningful. But what is it? What shape, form does this job have? And I was thinking, okay, let's start with, who do I want to help, and to do what? And I knew I wanted to help women, specifically, especially women, to feel empowered, to just make sure that, their light was shining in a way or another. So that was my starting point. And then I narrowed it down to, okay, but how do I want to do this? And I'm like, okay, considering my skill set, I could be a good coach. And then I was like, okay, but I need to be more specific than that. How can I actually help women nowadays while being a coach? And I'm like, okay, there's a lot of women in the, working and struggling with the usual stereotype and the usual bias against women, like, oh, you've been aggressive, or you're being bossy. And I'm like, okay, I want to be a career coach and the life coach, because the two topics, they are intertwined. You can't touch one without going, I mean, yeah, you can touch life coaching without necessarily going into work, but the moment you touch career, you will have to touch also your life as well, because it's part of your life. And when I do career coaching, I look holistically at the person, and we look at their entire life and how the different pieces, they combine together. So career nowadays, it's a big part of women, to like feel, accomplished, and to be independent, to feel empowered.
So then, uh, with life coaching, and then you realizing, okay, maybe I can do coaching, and I want to really help women, and I want to help them be empowered. What was the next step you sort of took from walking away from like corporate into walking towards your dream job?
So that was just like saying, okay, this is it for me. Cutting ties with corporate. Not saying that I'm never gonna go back ever to corporate. You never know. I could do both, but for now, I want to dedicate 100% of myself to this. So it was just me saying, okay, this is it. The time has come to take that leap of faith. It's a similar feeling that I had when I moved to London, when I started uni there, then later. It's just like I know that that's what I have to do. And then we will see how it's going to play out. But I know this is my next step. And it's just having faith, basically, that, I know I can do it.
So even though you didn't know really what to expect, you still just trusted yourself and went forward.
Yes. Yes.
So then during this entire time, did you have any pressure from family to maybe like focus on a family, get married rather than focus on your career?
So, not anymore. Actually, the only time when they told me that was when I was 26, when I wanted to go to uni in London. And there I had a big argument with my parents because, different generations, they haven't seen, the world. They've always been living in Italy. They haven't really traveled outside except for when they came to visit me in London or in Barcelona. So they have a very different opinion. So when I left corporate last year, well, now they don't tell me anymore about family and things like that. But they were concerned because I took the decision to just move into coaching. That was March. And my parents were like, so, but, what are you going to do? And I'm like, I'm going to do coaching. It's like, no, but, looking for a job. When are you going to start looking for a job? And I'm like, no, it's not happening. At least not for now. That's not what I want to do. I just want to be a coach. So, then in July, I enrolled in the coaching program, and I got certified in March. So now they are happy, and I think they kind of learned to trust me and to trust my decisions, especially my mom. My dad, sometimes he still feels like he might have a say. My mom has learned to trust me more. I don't know, probably because I think the biggest shock for her was when I told her I was moving to Shanghai. And I remember coming home from London to visit them, and I had already the conversation in the car from the airport to our house with my dad about moving to Shanghai for a while. And when I told my mom, she was like, Shanghai where? And my dad was like, Shanghai, China. She was shocked. I remember she was eating, she just dropped her fork and she was like, what do you mean? And I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna go there for a year, no more than that. But I don't know how much she trusts me now when I say no more than that. She's like, oh my God, but that's so far away. And I'm like, yeah, I know, but I want to do it and it's just going to happen. So
So,
this is it.
what was your time like in Shanghai?
Oh, it was very nice and at the same time very tough. Was tough in the sense that I felt like I was living in a bubble somehow because the expat community there is quite big. I couldn't speak Chinese, couldn't understand Chinese, so of course I had to be with expats when I was going out. At work, no, we were with Chinese people, but outside, I was interacting mainly with expats. It was a great experience, to be honest. If I, could go back in time, I would do it again. It was really tough because it's a very different culture to what I'm used to and to probably what we are used to, in the Western countries. They have very different ways to live. And that's fine. That's just fine. It's just that it takes some time to adapt. So I think the first 6 months I had a blast because everything was new and I love the skyline, the skyscrapers, it was just amazing. After 6 months, I started feeling like, okay, this is very far from home, very different. And what was bothering me was the pollution. Pollution was very, very high back then. Now I know it's a lot better, but pollution was extremely high. Not being able to run outside, for instance, to me was a shocker. Like, I never had imagined that something like this could be possible, that you're living in a place where you shouldn't be running outside because there's too much pollution. So to me, that was becoming very frustrating. And it's something I had completely underestimated when I moved there. But I thought, for my own safety, I think it's better if I start looking at moving back to Europe. One nice thing about moving to Shanghai or anywhere so far away from Europe is that the sense of community that you have with Europeans, it's way bigger than the one that I could have ever had in London, or let alone in Italy. Because we weren't saying anymore, like, in London, we were saying, oh, in Italy, you do that. In Germany, you do that. In France, you do that. In Spain, you do this. There, we were saying in Europe. It's like if we were one pack, one family, Europe. And I'm like, wow, that gives me the goosebumps.
So
It was a good sense of unity that, you need to move outside your town, your country. The more outside and the further you go from your own, let's say, your own country, the more you can feel it.
okay, that makes sense. Then from your coaching, then what would you say in your own words could be like a definition for a life coach?
So a life coach, it's is someone that is going to partner with you, uh, and is going to take you through anything you're going through in life. Is going to unlock your limiting beliefs. He's going to help you know your values, know yourself better. And a coach is different from a consultant and from a therapist, which I think lots of people are confused about, and rightfully so, because there's a lot of people that use these words interchangeably. But a coach, a certified coach by the ICF, is someone that doesn't give you advice, doesn't tell you what you should be doing. Because the principle is that you are the expert of your life. You have been walking in your own shoes, nobody else. Only you know what's best for you. Of course, during a session, we would be going through pros and cons, and how would you feel if that happened? How would you feel? So no stone will be left unturned, but you will be the one taking the decisions on how to move forward. And it could be applied to many life challenges, like I don't know, grief, divorce, getting moving house, moving country, or for instance, could be literally anything. And now nothing is coming up in my mind. And I'm thinking about my clients now. It could be a relationship. If you're struggling in your relationship, which could be with your partner, but it could be with your mom, with your dad, with anybody in your family, with a friend of yours. Because we normally also, when people go to, for instance, to therapy and to coaching or any expert of this sort, they always come with, I am not the problem. They are the problem and they need to change. But you are the one sitting there. They are not. So somehow there's something that you need to change in order for that person to change, or for that person not to affect you that much anymore.
So, what have you found to be an effective method in that way?
So an effective method is to uncover all the limiting beliefs that somebody has around a specific topic. Usually, at the core of everything is self-love, but that's another story. But so we uncover all the limiting beliefs, and then we'll take one by one and create a new story. Because when we were kids, we have learned these limiting beliefs because they were survival mechanism for us. They were things that, they were just helping us make sense of the world. Now they're just a burden for us. So we need to unlearn those behaviors. And the way it's done is through, okay, what's your new story? How can you reinterpret what has happened in a different light? And once you found a new way to see the reality, once you reframe the reality in a different way, then after the session, you go away and you start practicing it. Practicing, repeating the new story that you have, because we learn with the repetition.
Then with doing this repetition and trying to like create your new story, how do you sort of combat against those old self-limiting beliefs and be able to just let go of it and really just gain a new mindset?
It's a lot of work. So the way, we as coaches, we do it, it's reflecting what people are saying, asking deep questions. And then you see all of a sudden the client is like, oh, yeah, I said that. I never thought though about it in this way, because then you also ask challenging questions and they're like, oh, never seen that in this perspective before. It's like asking someone, okay, what's a ceiling? A ceiling, you could be like, first reply is, okay, a ceiling is a ceiling. It says, it's on top of my head and this is it. But is it just the ceiling? And, it's someone else's floor, your ceiling. So it's just seeing things from a different perspective. And then, a light bulb goes off and you're like, oh, yeah. But of course, it takes practice, which happens after the session. And during the session, there are some action points that the coachee is going to develop with the help of the coach. And is going to then practice it after. Because the aim of coaching is not to keep you in coaching session for the rest of your life. The aim is to give you all the tools that you need for you to just go about with your life later without needing another coaching session for that topic again. So it's really about giving you everything that you need, uncover your potential, because we all have so much potential that we haven't explored yet. So it's about to take that potential out and to show it to the person. And then they're always like, oh, yeah, never seen that before.
So then, Erica, if you were watching this video, say like a year from now or 2 years from now, and you want to sort of say something to the future Erica, and say something and maybe speak it into existence, what would you tell your future self?
My future self, I would probably, so my future self now to my future self, or my future self to my past self?
No, now to your future self.
Now to my future self, you're doing the right thing. Carry on. This is your path. You are going to do big things. Just have faith. It's going to happen.
So then, if anyone who's tuning in, Erica, who just, I guess, wants to get in and learn a little deeper about your methodologies, do you have like a website or anything to connect with?
Yes, sure. Thanks for asking. So it's www.erika with K, so Gardenal, which is the spell it out for the English speaking. So it's like garden, AL. So www.erikagardenal.com. And you can also find me on Instagram at erikagardenal.com. Sorry, no, it's just at Erika Gardenal. Instagram doesn't have a .com.
So, Erica, then if you could, I guess if someone asked you to describe life coaching or coaching or just helping others in a few sentences or a quote, what would the quote be?
Interesting. Tough question. So, how would I explain in a quote? Now, when you ask somebody what's your favorite food, and then all of a sudden they feel like they haven't eaten for the past 10 years. Same. So, how I would define it though, it's the art of unlocking potential and making people live their best life, uncompromised life.
I love that answer. So then, if I always try to have some fun questions as well. So, two truths and one lie. So you can tell me any two truths and one lie, and I'm gonna guess which one is the lie.
Okay. So about myself.
Yes.
So let's do this. I speak. I know that I already said I don't speak Chinese. So let's do this. Okay, I have it. I hit Penelope Cruz once by mistake. And then I can speak Finnish and I can speak some German.
You can speak German, is the lie?
No.
Oh.
Do you want me to tell you or do you want to have another go?
Yeah, you can tell me.
I don't speak Finnish, but funny story, I hit Penelope Cruz on her back by mistake.
Oh,
so yeah.
That's funny.
True story. So I was when I was studying, I was working in a famous department store in the UK. It's called Harvey Nichols. And there was this woman that approached me and she was like, oh, I want these jeans and that jeans in this size. And I was, I'm like, okay, I don't have them here, but I'm going to look in the stockroom. So I'm going to the stockroom and I'm like, I've seen her before. Who is she? And then I'm like, oh my God, this is Penelope Cruz. So I come out and she tells me, oh, thanks. Can you please bring them down to personal shopping, which is basically an area where people that hire a personal shopper or just famous people, they just grab everything they've seen and they try it only in one place because, there's different floors in the department store. So I take them downstairs. In my head, she was still walking around shopping. And I see this big wooden door in front of me of the fitting room. And in my head, that door must have been so heavy. And I had all these jeans on me and I just pushed the door and I've heard, ah! And I was like, oh my God, she was inside. I hit her on the back with the door on her back. I was like, my God.
That's a really interesting story. That doesn't happen too much.
No, thank God. No, I was like, my goodness, what did I just do and with who?
So, if you could, Erica, then just end on a quote. It could be any quote, but just one that's more dear to you, that sort of speaks to you and could have speak to us.
Okay, so let me think. One of my favorite quotes. Let me just have a look at the one that it feels, that is talking to me more now than any of the other quotes. Yes. All our dreams can come true if we have the courage to pursue them, by Walt Disney.
Uh, I really like that quote, and then the words of encouragement. Um, what I really got was that, no matter what, even if nobody believes you or nobody really uh, believes in the vision you see, as long as you believe in yourself and you trust yourself, you can reach and accomplish anything.
Exactly, exactly. You need to be your number one fan, your number one best friend, because we are all guilty of talking to ourselves in ways we would never imagine to talk to a dear friend of us. So we need to make sure we are our number one supporter.
Thank you again, Erica. I appreciate all your time, and I hope for you to come on another episode again in the future. And
Yes, I would love to.
thanks for really shedding us in that light and giving us good words of empowerment and encouragement.
Thank you so much, Amar, for the space that you've given me. I love your podcast and thank you for having me. Anytime I can always come back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Physically, mentally, spiritually, financially, consistently.